So we are going to get started with our last panel of day 2. I know it is Friday afternoon and it's a little bit gray outside, but we appreciate all of you being here. And for those of you who are still online, thank you for being present and staying with us towards the end of the conference. I hope you've had the opportunity to just stretch briefly in this break to host your bodies. We can really dive into our last and very vibrant conversation of the day. My name is Sofia Gomez. I'm a doctoral student here at NYU in the International Education Program, and it is such an honor to be moderating this conversation alongside my colleagues and classmates. And although I'm relatively new to the International Education Doctoral Program, my journey to NYU started about a decade ago. And in 2013, actually, I started at NYU Abu Dhabi as one of the incoming classes. In fact, I was in this very building in April of 2013, where I had the opportunity to meet with Hilary Ballin, who was one of the founding members of NYU Abu Dhabi. And what a gift that was. So yesterday when I walked into this building and saw pictures of my classmates and videos of people whom I spent many years with, it really felt like coming home. And so when I walked into this space and was able to connect with many individuals who are part of the broader GNU, it was really an emotional experience for me. So over 10 years later, I have a tremendous amount of gratitude to be sitting alongside my classmates and to be really thinking about the future of international education. Yesterday, Elizabeth Warden reflected on how IA experiences stay with you months and often years later, offering new insights and seeding new questions. And indeed, as many of the conference panelists touched upon yesterday, international education is not only how places shape and shift our perspective, but the internal transformation that results sometimes months and years after these experiences take place. As I reflect back on my own time throughout international education, it is the people whom I've developed relationships with, the programs that emerged as acts of creation, and the research questions that surfaced because of who was at the table. Last night, I was speaking to a dear friend of mine who also attended NYU, and I asked her, what did you take away from your time being a part of the Global Network University? And she said, the world seemed to come together. And this is not to neglect any of the challenges or political uncertainties that we currently find ourselves in, but just that drawing on the work of Ruha Benjamin, who I speak about so often in class, that in these moments we are creating the critical connections that allow us to imagine new futures and new possibilities. So in our final panel today, we have such an amazing group of master's students who are going to share and reflect upon their experiences through the program. I'm now going to turn it over to our incredible group of panelists. And I would like for you to start by introducing yourselves, what year you are in the program, and to begin so we can situate ourselves in the conversation here, to describe your own journey to the master's or PhD program in international education, and what were the factors, whether they were personal or professional, that led you or motivated you to choose a degree in international education. So I will start right here.
I did not expect to go first, honestly. But hello, everyone. My name is Madison. I am a Vietnamese international student at NYU, and I'm a master's student in the international education program. I'm in my last academic semester of the program, so yay! My next semester is my internship component, so I can't wait to, go back to the world and not get to go to classes anymore. But it is what it is. So I chose to go into international education because I've been an international student for the past 8 years of my life. I went home during COVID, and that was after my undergrad. And so in my head, I was looking for a buffer job, right? A job that gets you through COVID, but it kind of still gives you a reason to wake up every day so you don't, just stay in bed all day. And I geared toward what I was feeling more comfortable with, which was a private public partnership between a private Vietnamese university and a public Australian university. And at this partnership, I was working on facilitating student life activities and study abroad programs for inbound students. After COVID was over, I thought, you know what, it's time to go back to New York. I've always been fascinated with culture, so let's do something that's culture related and something that actually builds my career. And it took me a while, but I thought to myself, if I'm gonna do something that's actually going to do good for society in general, I'm gonna do it right. I'm going to do an international education degree at NYU, a global university, because to me, that's what's right. And here I am, and that's my journey to IE.
Beautiful. We'll go right down the row.
Okay, thank you so much. First of all, thank you everyone for staying late until this time. And also, I would like to take this time and thank you, the organizers. It's been an amazing conference. I've learned so much, so value-add, and all the different conversations here. So I would like to take, for all of us to take a moment and give them a round of applause. My name is Hamid. I am a third-year PhD student in the IA program, working with Dana. And my journey to the program, I think it starts way back when I completed my undergraduate degree in India. So this is something that the context that I come from a really remote and rural area in Afghanistan. And when I'm the fifth person that completed the graduate from 12th grade, and then when I did my undergrad degree and came back to Afghanistan, I was the first that completed undergraduate degree. Sometimes, you know, becoming first is painful. This is one of those times. But surprisingly, I didn't have that realization. And so the context is there was no school near to our village, and I used to go with my brother, who was a pharmacist in the nearby town, and the town was like 15 kilometers away. So when I came back, the village, people from the village, they would come and, you know, express their happiness and congratulate my parents. But they would also say that that they wish that their kids could also complete, you know, schooling and university. And that struck me, and it was surprising because for some reason, I didn't have that realization that I was the only one. And I was like, why is that the case? So in India, my bachelor degree was in business administration, and my domain that I focused on was finance, so accounting and everything. But those 10 days that I was in my village, that question really hit me hard, the access question. Alan Goodman said that every morning we wake up, we should have that question, widening access. And I was like, why am I the only person? So that moment, those 10 days made me realize that I should be working in the field of education, not finance, not business administration. Went back to Kabul, the first job, because I was looking for a relevant you know, position, was easy for me to get it, was in the finance, but in the meantime, I was looking for another job. So I got a job at the Ministry of Education. But I wanted to learn the access part. So for 3 or 4 years, I worked with the ministry, and the department was called Structure Development Department. It was all about, you know, the structure, the stuffing, the different departments, all of those things, but not really the educational part. But then I wanted to find a relevant job. So I was looking through the jobs, and then there was an announcement, and NYU had started a project that I didn't know what NYU was, but I read research associate with NYU. So I opened it to read it. The description was The project was looking into access when it comes to basic education and learning about the factors there and things like those. And I was like, this is perfect for me. So I applied, and I also applied to a number of other positions. But basically, that was a project by Dana. I'll say access, and it was community-based education in Afghanistan. So through that project, I worked for maybe three years, 3.5 years. That gave me the opportunity to go and talk to, teachers and students and parents and administrators, basically everyone. And that also, that 3-4 years got me into thinking about, doing my academic studies in the field. Dana and Amy, maybe some of you don't know her, is an international education graduate from NYU. She was also in the project, and Dana and Amy, they're role models for me. And I was like, this international education is the program that I should study. So my master's was through the Fulbright program in the International Education Policy program at Harvard Graduate School of Education. And then for 2 to 3 years, I worked in Afghanistan and then came back and started my PhD here. So that's a long story of how I ended up with my PhD.
Hello, everyone. I'm Naya. I'm from Indonesia. I am a second-year master's student in the IE program. That is a good question. How did I get into this program? I would say, I think like my interest in anything international started like in my teenagehood era when in Indonesia, I was exposed to a lot of things from America, like Glee, I don't know, like all pop culture things. And I've always wanted to go to New York. And I think this is also something that I will also talk about maybe in this panel is in my high school year, I actually applied to the AFS program and through with the Kennedy Lugar Youth Exchange and Study Scholarship Program by the US Department of State. And with those scholarships, I was able to go to the US. I was sent to Chicago as an exchange student for 1 year. And that 1 year in my high school year totally shifted my whole perspective of what international things, I would say. But I was still questioning kind of like what part of international that I want to look at. So after that, I went back to Indonesia. I studied international relations at an Indonesian university. I loved politics, but I kind of didn't like a lot of the war aspect of it, if that makes sense. I do not like talking about how countries are sending like guns to other countries, essentially. Like, I don't like talking about killing people. And so I kind of like was like looking into things, and I've always noticed that I've always loved teaching. So I became a teacher, I became an education consultant. But throughout all these years, I kept coming back to that exchange year back in 2014, 10 years ago when I was in Chicago. And I think that's like a lot of things that are missing in a lot of talk about international education. And the talk that we've talked in the past 2 days is that K-12 education and like international exposure definitely can bridge a lot and give you a lot more exposure when students go pursue their higher degrees. And that's what happened with me, because that particular interest that started really young, and I think both of you also talked about that as well, kind of like, oh, my exposure to IE is essentially not, oh, I go to university and I got interested. It started way before that. That's the case with me. And that's why I mentioned how I got influenced by Glee. I wanted to go to New York. And here I am. So I'm glad to be here right now, but it's definitely a lot of like personal, professional. Of course, New York, it has a lot of like offices that talk about international education. I'm also now doing my internship at Global Cities, a Bloomberg Philanthropies program, where we connect with schools around the world, with teachers as well. And so it's been really interesting just to see how international education is being implemented, because we don't see that happening, even I think maybe in other cities outside of New York City. So yeah, a lot of those reasons, but I'm gonna hand it over to Parker.
Hello, I am Parker. I'm from North Carolina, so not quite international, but it's you know, if you look at a map, it kind of seems international at times. Yeah, I've been at NYU for almost 10 years now, as an undergraduate, as a master's student, as a second master's student now. And yeah, I stumbled into the core liberal studies program my freshman year, studied abroad in Florence, had a great time and decided this study abroad thing seems pretty nice. I think more people should do this. And so working full-time now at NYU Steinhardt as an instructional designer, a lot of my work centers around building learning experiences for students, helping to hopefully bring global experiences to students that traditionally wouldn't get to have those experiences. But yeah, my journey is very lucky when you think about all of the amazing things my friends have gone through in this program. I think yeah, I'm grateful to be a part of the panel, and I'll pass to Peter.
Thank you, and thank you, I program to organize this exhibition, this conference, sorry. So my name is Seung-Kyu Han. I also go for Peter. I'm originally from South Korea. And answering the question from Sofia, I will introduce one curiosity and two interventions that I choose this program specifically. So one curiosity. So I actually started program at NYU called XE, Interdisciplinary Studies. And the reason why I chose this program is because I would like to examine the role of arts in peace building. And the XE program offers a very interesting program. And while pursuing this program, I took a course called NYU 200, a history of NYU. And during that course, I conducted the NYU Global Network University. And I found very interesting topics about Global Network University, especially from a book called Stand for Reason, written by John Saxton, and how he navigates his idea of GNU with the fire and ice sectors. Fire refers to finance, insurance, real estate, and ice, intellectual, cultural, and educational sectors. So I wanted to understand more about how IE program, especially in NYU, kind of expanded this program at the same time, how NYU itself as a brand are expanding the higher education and so on and so forth. And two interventions very briefly. So I studied my undergrad at Eastern Mennonite University. You can see my bio in the brochure, but what I wanted to raise the question is, what is peace and how do I define peace through this higher education? And one, my friend, during my undergrad sophomore year, right before joining my military service, since I'm a South Korean citizen, raised me a question that, hey, Peter, why are you joining the army where it teaches how to kill people while you're studying peace building? So that question led me to think, yeah, that question is valid. And as a Korean citizen, considering with all my friends, joining the army is a very natural thing. But that question led me to think, what's the meaning of peace for me? And that question struggles until the end of my military service, and decided to pursue the religion, which is my first master at Duke Divinity School. And which is my second intervention. And I realized there are different nature of responses from the global South and global North. For instance, in the global North, especially in the West, when it comes to the freedom of belief, the result is the 30 Years War, meaning that people risk their lives, risking their lives to fight over their freedom and their belief. And whereas in the global South, especially I conducted research in China during the Maoist era, I realized the global South people risk their life for their country, meaning they have a different logos, I would say. So my master thesis about how the Confucian culture in the Holy Land of Confucianism responded to radical politics, especially during the Maoist era. And I found that the cultural heritage have some deter some radical politics. And I wanted to see how the cultural heritage, meaning the art and artifacts, kind of play a role in building peace. So those three areas that led to study IE program and really enjoying software from Dr. Birdie and Dr. Laman, and obviously Dr. Spring on the courses that I'm enjoying with engaging with my folks. Thank you.
Thank you so much for sharing parts of your stories and your journeys that led you to IE. So often we're in class together talking about really important, complex ideas, but it's so important to return to the why are we here and why does this matter to us individually as people from so many different places. So as IE master's students and doctoral students, there are numerous opportunities to engage in research and community-based projects that really reflect the ethos of this program, which is committed to collaboration, curiosity, self-reflection, and critical thinking. I'm curious if you can elaborate on a research project that you're currently involved in, or an internship or community-based project that reflects the ethos of NYU IE's program, and how your involvement in such initiative has either changed your sense of self or your perspective on the world. And in order to change it up, we'll start in the middle. So Naya, you have the honors.
Okay, that's a good question. So right now, like I mentioned before, I am now doing my internship at Global Cities, and it's very interesting and kind of refreshing as well. Because in a lot of times, in a lot of our classes, when we talk about international education, we talk of higher education. And I think we're missing the K-12 part, especially like early education as well, where we see in a lot of global South countries, a lot of governments are giving more international exposure as early as possible. In Indonesia, for example, I'm just going to give you an example. About like 5 years ago, the government decided to remove the English language as part of the curriculum. And that created a lot of debates and rejections from the people because they thought we need English as early as possible, as early as students go into elementary school. So that is, I think, the piece that I'm also like trying to figure out in my internship and also in my classes right now. How do we bridge that gap between K-12, international education, and higher education? Which is what I'm trying to do in both sides of my internship and my research. So my research is mostly focusing on higher education. I'm doing mine on this one Indonesian program similar to like Erasmus, Fulbright, and all that. But I'm looking at things from more of a governmental perspectives, like the study abroad policies and internationalization policies aspect, and how students are perceiving those in their decision-making processes. What I also found in a lot of the, I've just been like doing like preliminary interviews. These decisions to study abroad when they go to university, like what I mentioned before, it didn't start, you know, when they become 20 or 18 years old. It started like when they were like, I don't know, like 10 years old, 3 years old, even, you know, like they see TV, they hear a lot of things from people around the world. And it's just so interesting to me how these things are different in the global north versus the global south, especially in the global south where we see a lot of countries and citizens as well, I mean, governments and citizens thinking of study abroad as means of development, meaning that, oh, when you go abroad, you can get better employment, or the government is thinking when you study abroad, it can generate better revenue or income from for our countries. It can, you know, reduce brain drains and all that. So there's a lot of like economic aspect that go into it. I think, which is different than in a lot of global north countries. I see students going, oh, just because I want to experience France, I want to experience Indonesia, I want to experience, it's more of a cultural reasoning that goes into it. Meanwhile, in the global south, people see it as an economic opportunity, if that makes sense. So that's like a lot of these intricacies are things that I'm looking forward to learning more about. But yeah, it's a lot of things here and there, but definitely something related to governmental internationalization policies, starting from K-12 up to higher ed.
Beautiful. Let's pass it to the right, and then we'll transition back to Parker and Peter.
Great, thank you. So the question that internship opportunities research that we've been involved in, how they have changed our perspective. I think we also need to include our courses here, how they have changed our perspective. And I think I'll quickly mention two of the classes here for two of the professors who are here. The globalization, I'll start from right. What we have learned in that class and the passion that Caroline has for explaining topics, I mean, if you give her one topic, maybe she would be able to talk for 2 days. And so passionately too. So that's amazing. Contemporary issues with Dana, what we've learned in that class, all the issues that are in the field, really, really amazing. So those are, you know, perspective changing, and so many more. One of other classes that I would mention, Naya Biway, she's not here, Antonia Observations, has totally changed the way I look at the world and the way I interpret interactions with people. So it's been amazing. And when it comes to internship and research opportunities, our own dissertation, you know, topic, and that we've been working on together in the DocSim with all us in the program. It's been so amazing to learn from each other, to understand. I mean, so many amazing topics that each of our friends have been working on, from, let's say, tolerance and mutual understanding between the Israelis and the Palestinians, to you know, the private and public purposes of education, higher education, and so many other topics, each of which have give us, and it's not that each is working on it individually. We've been, you know, we know where every one of us is at, so that's been amazing. And quickly, when it comes to research, the one question that I said from start has struck me, which is the access part. That is something that I've been working on, part of the project with Dana and Hedi, which is right now in Afghanistan. We try to provide access to you know, education where there is a ban on girls' education, through, you know, distance education and media education. So many things I've learned, the topic that I'm personally interested in, and I'm not going to go into details. There will be maybe some presentation or something in the program. We've had our findings, so oh yeah. So yeah, it's been amazing. The research, the studies, the different topics that we explore together. Everything has been amazing.
Thank you. So with this question about, you know, ongoing project and research, I personally have nothing going on officially. But as a person, I've always been interested in culture in general. So for my undergrad, I did media studies and I studied how culture was being transpired through media. And I thought that wasn't enough. So I thought, let me double degree and study how culture is being sent across border through cuisines. And then I didn't think that was still enough. So I minored in Hispanic studies and see how that has formed culture. So culture has always been something that I've been very curious about. And now that we're in international education, we talk about how culture is reproduced through education, right? And with that, I, this year, following Naya's step, I signed up to be the president of the International Education Student Board, where we hope to facilitate a community for our master's students within the program. And the reason why I thought it was so important to me to do this was that I've seen firsthand how many international student has decided to leave academic programs because they simply didn't fit in. They didn't feel the need to fit in. And despite the fact that there are so many resources offered to international students and all they got to do is take it, they don't see the need to do it. So then, other than offering resources to international students, how can we still, as educators, engage international student? And with that, next semester with my internship, I'm working with NYUIT and the Brightspace team to develop trainings where we helped faculty understand the struggles of international students through the phases of transitioning into this new culture, this new academic model, how they are going to learn and how faculty can support them in this process. And hopefully this is something that I could share with everyone at next year's conference. Yes, thank you.
Amazing. Thank you for all the work that you do with the IASB. Let's go ahead and transition to Peter and Parker.
Yeah, we're Peter Parker. We're Spider. So in case you forget our names. Yeah, so I'm doing a really fun project with Caroline right now. We're building a research ethics fieldwork course experience, a series of modules that will help international students and domestic students alike go abroad to Tanzania next summer to do interesting research and have it be meaningfully and ethically conducted. I love being in class with Caroline because she gives a lot of great case studies. But for example, you wouldn't knock on random people's doors and ask them strange questions. It's, you have to kind of think through, what you're doing and why. So this course that we're designing is meant to be a better way of starting that conversation, almost a pre-orientation before going abroad to conduct more meaningful research when abroad in kind of a partnership with Tandon, with Wagner, with Global Public Health, with all these different schools. So it's a fun blend of my work and my studies. But yeah, so that's an example of a project that I'm working on that I'm having a lot of fun with.
So answering Sophia's question, I a little bit rephrased the question by on how can, and allow me to be called peace builder educator at this time, at least. So how can an educator, peace builder with an Anabaptist background and peace scholarship engage in a meaningful community-based project that builds solidarity and creates hope in the NY community? And in order to honor our time, I prepared some notes. So I answered this question by providing two examples of my projects. One project from last summer that I organized a special exhibition at North Korean Human Rights Museum in South Korea, and the other project that I'm working on with my team for Dr. Lama's class, including Lucy, who's here. So my big motivation for this is first, I believe education, unlike politics, can change people's views and eventually build a more peaceful discussion with those who have different backgrounds, ideas, and beliefs and identities. Higher education in this process should support students who are advocating for academic freedom, freedom of expression, and freedom of belief. Second, higher education should be and is practiced as a space for tolerance, resilience, and reconciliation. Actually, Elizabeth, who's a professor of American University, and our alumni mentioned about this also. And yeah, and last summer, so I had the honor to work with the Database Center for North Korean Human Rights, called NKDB, to organize a special exhibition featuring 4 art pieces created by my grandfather, Eun-Sik Lee, a North Korean born who spent more than 5 decades as an artist and educator, and at the North Korean Human Rights Museum, Seoul, South Korea, which is the country's first human rights museum. And worth noting that all of my grandfather's artworks were displayed only in either art gallery or art museums. And the exhibition explores the role and use of Lee's artworks to shed light on my grandfather's everyday life as a North Korean artist and as a South Korean educator. What does it mean? Namely, the series of art pieces are rooted in a deeply North Korean focused story, oppression and violence from the Kim regime that we are observing today, but also they aimed at promoting democratic values, advocating human rights, and building peace in the Korean Peninsula. So Lee's artworks, in other words, holds dual voices captured in the museum that share a powerful understanding of Lee's aesthetics and stories of his art, and to raise critical questions and provide audiences with foundation to understand what North Koreans can do and their potential are. And education plays a very important role in this process. Me and my team members on the next projects are currently organizing an event to create a space for artists and creative writers to amplify their hidden perspectives and voices under our theme of artistic and academic freedom. As a group project for the Human Rights Education and Activism course, my team is currently working closely to organize the exhibition by collecting art pieces and writings such as poems, nonfiction, novels, and creative materials. So far, diverse NYU centers are willing to support our events, such as, but not limited to, Verbatim Performance Lab, NYU Global Spiritual Life, NYU Standard Art and Arts Education, and Media, Culture, and Communication Program, and XC Interdisciplinary Studies. And also, the events will be held at CMEP. Ranjong is here, willing to share their spaces, and will be held on December 6, 2024. So with this exhibition, my team hopes to explore artistic and academic freedom at NYU and creating a space for promoting peaceful discussion by amplifying voices and message from artists and creative writers by opening an exhibition. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Peter. I hope you share that information with the wider IE community, and we look forward to supporting you there. And for everyone else who shared their experiences, it's just a reminder of all of the rich and vibrant opportunities that we have the opportunity to participate in as students, both within the classroom, through research, and through broader community projects. So I'm just sitting here and really thinking about how lucky we are to be among such incredible professors who are vibrant and dynamic, and equally among vibrant and dynamic peers. We are all students right now, but at some point we will graduate and go into the world. So with that in mind, what do you see as your role in the future of international education? We'll start with Hamid. We'll move to the right, and then we'll circle back to Naya and Peter and Parker.
Thank you. So my personal interest is really the potential that internet and educational technology has in facilitating access to education and also learning in different subjects, especially in areas that are resources poor. That is my interest. In my opinion, technology and internet, it's something, it's a double-edged sword. It's a tool, an amazing tool, but it also has so many issues from, adding to the divide and increasing the gap and so many more. But I think it's a tool, and in the future, this is my personal belief, I think we're moving in a direction where there will be more and more role for technology, whether we like it or not. I think in all domains of education. And I think as educators and researchers, this is the time to really learn about it, understand it, how it applies in different contexts. I think especially in contexts where there's been already so many challenges with access and learning and gap between gender and so many more challenges that we have. So that is my interest, and that's what I've been learning and exploring in studying about. That's also my dissertation topic, also the project that we've been working on. And in the future, I think, this is how I say myself in the field, I think I would be working with organizations in the fields, international large-scale organization, and really be, part of, the thought leaders in the field, someone with understanding of education and all the different, aspects that we have to be critical of. The learning that I've had in this program from critical perspective, I think that part is amazing. And then adding to that, then learning about the technology itself. lately, especially the tech part and people who learn and explore sociological topics and issues are, I don't know, they're drifting apart. And I think that interdisciplinary, I don't know if technology is even a discipline, but it's something that have been influencing all of us so fundamentally. So I think that gives me that sort of strength that to look into it and understand critically its role, and be part of those organizations. Also research more and understand more and learn its different applications.
Let's pass it to Madison.
Thank you. So for those of you here who know me, you know that I'm ambitious. For those of you who don't know me, I am. So with the future of myself within this field, there are numerous things that I'd like to accomplish. Some of you might know that Vietnam recently has been one of those top country that exports students to study abroad. And I, as a person, as a fellow international student, would like to assist their journey in a way where I'd prefer it if they were to gain from this experience meaningfully rather than doing it because everyone else is doing it out of peer pressure. That's never great. So I'd love to help the students to understand how to understand before they leave for this new random country that they're being shipped off to, right? What is it going to be like when you're going to encounter culture shock? What it's going to be like when you have to agree to disagree? What it's going to be like when you're away from home and you're 18 and you have no idea what you're going to do for the rest of your life? So I want to help students through that journey. And then on top of that, being ambitious, I'd like to look into, transnational education management, where you're bringing, like NYU has its global sites, and we're bringing this curriculum to the world. I wanted to study to see whether local culture has any influence on students' learning and teaching capabilities and how that affects their academic success. How do we measure that? How do we incorporate culture into these lessons? Do we have to adapt the whole curriculum at all? Or do we just export it as is? So hopefully that'll be something that I'm able to do.
As for me, I am graduating in the spring semester. I received an email yesterday. They asked me to register for graduation. I'm still in denial mode. I do not want to graduate because my research is still far from being done. No, but that's a good question once again. And when you asked me that question, I got instantly reminded of what I talked about. So I was actually I consulted with Dr. Joanne Halpern. She's one of the IE adjunct professor as well. And she was one of my research advisors for the NAFSA conference. And we were just talking about different things, including research and professional developments. And she was saying something that really stood out to me. She said something about, you gotta find your niche within your niche. And that's just very interesting because I know that we, in this world, we only have limited resources and capabilities, especially if you're from the global south countries like I am. I'm here with a scholarship fully funded by my government. I do not have all the resources, to study abroad anywhere or whatever. So I just gotta find that sweet spot where I can contribute. And for now, I don't know what that is. Like what I mentioned before, I'm kind of all over the place in a way that I'm interested in K-12 education, I'm interested in higher ed, I'm interested in governments, I'm interested in developments and all that. So I think I can be anywhere where I'm needed. So I don't know. But one thing that I will also share maybe is that prior coming here, other than becoming a teacher and an education consultant, I also built a nonprofit, and we actually have worked with more than 50 schools all across Indonesia, in the most rural parts of Indonesia as well. And that organization is on hiatus right now, so we're not doing any sorts of activities and all that, but we do have wonderful teachers that have worked with us in the past. We do have amazing students that have done their best to still go to schools despite everything, financial barriers, physical barriers that they had to encounter. And I would love to see what I can do to help them, I would say. Not necessarily helping, but working with them to achieve their educational goals. Like what I mentioned before, I do believe that starting as early as possible, giving global exposure, international exposure, is definitely something I'm passionate about. I don't know how that's gonna be reflected per se in Indonesia, where the IE field is once again, it's a very niche field. It's a very new field. Our government, our international decision policies did not exist. Like, I think it only existed like in this past 3 years. So I don't know where I'm going from here. But yeah, I think I gotta find my niche within that niche.
So one of the things that I've gathered from this program is that there are like a million things you can do with an IE degree, or with just the international education field in general. I think I went into this program with the idea of study abroad and higher education, and that was it. And like my first class was how do refugees get education after they can't go to school anymore? And it was kind of like a mind blown, like, oh, of course, why wouldn't we think about that? So it's been very eye-opening for me for the last 2 years to see kind of how my classmates, where they come from, what they do, what they're interested in, what motivates them. But for me, I think my niche is, I think, tech. So I'm very interested in virtual exchange, and finding more meaningful ways to do that that aren't lame or maybe ethically problematic with AI and things like that, right? Finding ways to really connect and make personal connections that can be brought over into the physical world, and further learning in a meaningful way, socially and practically. So, yeah.
For me, I think I will continue to struggle with the question, what is peace, with practice and research. So for the practice, as Elizabeth Warden mentioned, higher education should be a place as a space for tolerance and inclusion. I think the project that I'm going on with my team, I would like to practice how arts play a role in peace building and resilience and inclusion. And also I will be graduating this coming spring as Naya and Madison Parker, I believe. Yeah, so I'll be working on that as a practice. For research, I want to bring on the words from Christy Patton, a counselor to the president of NYU. She raised the idea of NYU global presence. And I'm hoping to be as a NYU global presence by doing a research. After finishing this program, I'm planning to pursue a doctor's degree on narrowing down what is peace in education and different fields, related to fields. And for the upcoming research, I'll be presenting at CIES 2025 with Hamid, Parker, Naya, and other doctoral students at Chicago next year about reflecting my last exhibition, as well as using digital technology and how arts with digital technology promotes peace and reconciliation. Thank you.
Beautiful. I feel like we could all give you a round of applause right now. We love the ambition, and I'm also feeling very hopeful, echoing many of the themes that we heard about during lunch. So that leads me into my last question. And so as I do so, I want you to start thinking about questions for our incredible panel this afternoon. So at moments when the journey forward for change seems daunting or nearly impossible because of the circumstances beyond our control, how do you as individuals find and build hope for your work? I'll start with Parker this time.
I forget who said it this morning, but the idea of kind of just putting your head down and working, like doing what you can in the realm of control that you have. I feel like that's been most helpful for me. It's finding, all right, what activism can I do in my local community? What, connections can I build? Who can I reach out to and see if they're okay? Come to work, make cool research presentations and classes for other students to better the world in the ways I can. Yeah, I feel like that's my strategy has been focus as much as I can.
Beautiful. Peter?
Sorry, Sophia, could you elaborate the question once again?
Yeah, in moments of uncertainty, in moments when the political landscape can feel really daunting, what grounds you or provides you with a sense of hope for the work that you hope to do? And so much of your work is focused on peace and peace building. So at a personal level, what grounds you and provides hope?
Well, definitely this conference gives me hope, full of hope. And also I really appreciate for this organizing committee to provide the opportunity for our current students, including doctors and masters, to share our thoughts and our current and past projects or research that we are doing. And also I think NYU has a lot of system or engagement or encourage students to engage with different students, faculty, and staff and communities. And I think that's also needs to be considered. Yeah.
I will say that Peter's child Urim gives me hope.
That's a great question. I keep saying that, but these are all great questions. Sofia, you're such a great moderator. Round of applause for Sofia. I'm not gonna lie, I am hopeless. I'm hopeless and hopeful at the same time. Like, it doesn't have to be one or the other. I can be both. For me, in a way that I'm hopeless, because like everything that's happening in my country is also making me hopeless. Like, we just had a new president. He's like essentially like the new president that y'all have. And he reduced a lot of like budget for education. We don't even know if like the internationalization policies are still gonna be in place after he came into office. A lot of these changes are essentially making me hopeless. But I think on the other hand, I've had the privilege of working with a lot of people on the ground that care about these issues. And these people give me hope in a way that I'm not alone in feeling hopeless, if that makes sense. So I'm like being hopeless in solidarity with all these people. So it's like, oh, we're hopeless together. And that brings me hope. It's kind of like a paradox in that sense. But that's what I feel. Like in Indonesia, like we make jokes about how our new president just cut the budget of our education, how schools are not being developed, and a lot of things are being criticized, but we make fun of it in a way that, oh, we make fun of it, then what do we do from here? So seeing people on the ground, being connected to a lot of grassroots communities, like what I mentioned, I have had the privilege of working with teachers, students with disabilities even, and seeing the perspectives of education from their lenses and their experiences. These personal stories are, I think, what keeps me going. I'm not gonna say I'm essentially hopeful 100% all the times. But yeah, seeing these stories and hearing their perspectives really keep me going, I would say.
Thank you, Naya. So I would agree with Naya, Peter, and Parker. But because this is your last question, I would like to talk briefly and reflect back on a few of the things that we heard during the conference, but really highlight 2 points. And one would be the discussion for the most part was how the exchange programs in international students bring to the US in terms of economic gains and also other factors. I think one of the things that we have to be talking about is how international students coming here can also benefit their home societies. And I think that's something, I think international exchange in general could be a win-win solution. I'm not sure if that is for the time being. I think for partly, we talked about, the brain drain part. But I think it won't be a brain drain if the scholars and researchers who come here in some ways connect back to with their own communities and societies. And I would just mention one example that can be done. And I would say that through like a really maybe brief story, like 30 seconds or something. A friend of mine, we had like a weekly platform in Kabul in which we would, bring together friends, and when people would like give a lecture, and then we would have an open discussion. And then one of the guests one day was someone who had done her studies in London, and he was as an environmental specialist. And he gave us a lecture about what could be some solutions to the drought in Afghanistan and the desertification of part of the country, which was a really important topic. And then, and he was an expert. And then a friend of mine, Muhammad Yar, he said that, well, you have to, it was an amazing lecture and such a good discussion, but you have to be writing about this. No one knows about it. This is what we need. And he was like, I've been writing about this for years. And we're like, how? Yeah, he had been writing about it in English as part of her studies, PhD, which is great, but what does that do? And his research was about Afghanistan, but it's in English, and it's been published in the Western journals, which is great, amazing. But can we, at the age of technology and AI, figure out ways to also bring that research to the people in those countries about which those people do research, be it people from their own country or from here? Can there be some other solutions? Can we think about, this being a win-win for both the host society and also the home society? So that's one part, and I think that can be done. I want to borrow something that Elizabeth Warden said, Lizzie. She said that this has to be, international students should be thought leaders in thinking about their needs and what they bring to the table and what can be done, what should be the way forward. And I think that is a point that we have to highlight. What are ways that can be done is an open question, but until we engage them in, because it's them that they know about what they need. I have listed a few other points, but in interest of time, I wanted to highlight those key points.
Thank you. That was very hard to follow. I'm sorry. The question was hope. Hope, right. Hope would be great. Hope would be awesome. Personally, instead of hope, I plan. Some of you may have worked with me in the past. Some of you may still be working with me now. You know that I have plan A and I have it all the way through plan C. And if plan A is looking a little bit shaky right now with all of the political uncertainty, we kind of shift gear. We shift to plan B or we shift to plan C. And I think when it comes to planning, there's a lot of things that's involved. One of it is to understand and keep on reminding ourselves of what is our final goal with this journey. What is the goal that we're all trying to achieve? And we keep our eyes on the prize. We don't lose sight of it. And with that, we create plans that help us achieve it, whether it be short-term or long-term, or if it's too hard, do it day by day. And that's one thing that I think could help us with hope. And the other thing I think could be to study it, to learn more about it, because uncertainty at the end of the day could be fear of the unknown. And the less you know, the more fearful you are and the more hopeful or hopeless you can get. But the more information we can gain on something can help us gain some sort of certainty, and it can help inform us of creating plans. I'm really big on this plan thing. I'm really preaching for it. Yes. So
No, that's beautiful and a perfect place to end on, and very similar to what we talk about in Carol Ann's class all the time, thinking about bell hooks and how theory is healing. And maybe that is also what we need in this particular time. But to acknowledge all the comments that you said, perhaps even being here is an act of solidarity, is representing an ethic of care. And even as we begin to imagine and co-create solutions, simply moments like this conference represent a really critical and important step forward.